If you are not crying or singing on Disarm by Smashing Pumpkins, I don't know what you were doing. When I read that most of the things in the Artisanal collection were actually thrifted, and they were thrifted at Gettysol, which is this like multi-store thrifting business, very much well known by Parisians and fashion people living in Paris. This was actually probably the last best kept secret of secondhand shopping in Paris. And now that Margiela has thrifted there, I feel like it's gonna be the next viral thing. I feel like fashion people have worked so hard to keep this away from the internet because they wanted to, yeah, just not have yet another viral store in Paris that was just becoming more and more expensive. So they work really hard and now it's just out there. So here you go. Gettysol is a very great place for finding leather jackets, finding vintage denim, and just in general accessories, a little bit of everything. It's not known for designer stuff. There isn't much, but that doesn't mean that it's not great. I'm so happy to get back to this format. You guys know the past episodes have been very much focused on interviews, and this was a dream that I had since I started the podcast. I also wanted to bring in fashion experts that could give you and also me some just different and new information that we didn't know and we wanted to learn about. And this was the reason why the interview started. It took me a long time because at first I also needed to kind of like build a brand for the podcast and also an audience, of course. And then with this, it was obviously easier to actually get guests to come on the podcast and speak. Favorite episode? Okay, I can't really choose, but obviously the one with Nick Knight was massive. Also in terms of performance, you guys really loved it. It was really a masterclass, and um, it was very insightful for me as well. Like I just felt like I was at a university lecture almost, and that was really interesting. Another one that I had a lot of fun filming was with Lucien. Lucien had so much insider information for when it comes to public relations, of course, but also, some tea in regards of that, which is always fun to hear about and talk about. What else did I like? Diane was fucking great, but it was expected, like she's great. We know that she is. And I loved how ruthless she was in her comments. I think this is something that's kind of hard when you're doing interviews to get the guests to be themselves, but also like to actually speak their truth. Often people think that, it's like kind of public and they don't really want to say what they really think because, yeah, it could backfire. And this is a thing in fashion. So I've been trying and worked a lot to find guests that are very true to themselves and they have strong opinions and they just want to bring those opinions here. So I feel like the guests up until now, they were like this. Otto Linger was also like insane. It was an open conversation with a fashion brand. And I'm a little bit skeptical when it comes to interviewing designers, although like obviously super interesting to know about their like process and what just like the ideas behind the brand. I'm fascinated by people who are starting a brand right now as well because just like for I guess the fashion climate we live in, it's just not very inviting. It's not a business model that I would personally approach at the moment. But I'm fascinated with people who believe so much in their vision that they don't care about this. And they start, they see where it goes, and sometimes it's fucking successful. Like, look at Otto Linger. So I really love talking with Cosima. She was quite open about different things that in regards of having an independent brand. So I really appreciated that, guys. Like after doing some interviews, I really understand when someone is being themselves or they're trying to like promote themselves, and like doing a little bit of tricky things, and I've just been blessed so far. At the moment, I'm thinking of different guests. I'm trying to get different guests. It's fucking hard, but working on it. If you want someone on the pod, if you are interested in hearing what someone specific has to say, let me know and I will try to get that person. Anyways, I just missed saying it, so grab your drink of choice. I'm having an iced Americano right here from one of my favorite cafes in Berlin called Sophie. I'm filming in this beautiful location very close by to Sophie, which is in like the center of Berlin. This is actually a very beautiful space that I decided to get because just my apartment is super dark and I felt like I wanted to step this shit up and just have a great comfortable location where the light is great. Hopefully the sound will also be great. As we know, yesterday Glenn Martens showcased his first collection, an artisanal collection, very fucking brave of him, in Paris for Maison Margiela, and I was mesmerized. I was hypnotized. I was having an outer body experience almost. I was actually having a little bit of aperitivo for my birthday, which was yesterday. I felt relieved because I was terrified that this would go shit. I felt relieved because I don't know, just thinking of normally I'm not into debut shows. I don't even like to review them as much here because they're complicated, it's just the first step into a complete new direction that could, go on and on for years, decades. So I I'm normally more into like watching a little bit, seeing what's going on, taking it in and see some couple of collections and shows and understand where it goes. So normally I would take some time to digest before reviewing, but I felt like this is such a major event and it just made me feel a specific way, this debut, that I want to talk about it. First thing that I noticed was that it did not feel like a disruption from everything that Galliano did, specifically the last artisanal show by Galliano, which, I mean, how the fuck are you gonna top that? So it was interesting that it did not feel to me like a disruption and just something completely different. It really felt like a continuation. The opinions online are wild, but that's normal. It often happens when there's a new creative direction at one of these major houses like Margiela. There are always two type of discussions. One is, oh my god, John Galliano was doing such a better job and this is shit. Second discussion is, should this house continuing on like standing on business while with new creative directors when the founder leaves. And with Margiela this is always a discussion because there's always the differentiation between the purists and the modern fans, I would say, or more like fresher fans. The purists always say no, when the founder leaves the house has to die. See Alexander McQueen, see Helmut Lang. We've had this conversation also with Diane on the podcast, if you remember. But then you have others who are saying it's beautiful to keep on going, with the heritage, the legacy, but reinterpreting that into a new and into a new vision. And if people are hungry, give people what they want. And people are hungry for Margiela. People always want more. It's a brand that's performing extraordinarily right now. And it felt like a continuation from Galliano because it was able to deliver that level of intensity in performance. It was able to bring you to another world, to the Margiela world, to suck you in, and for that moment you just belong there and you are just enjoying this out of the world experience, out of the time experience. And there's nothing more beautiful than that. And this is my expectation of creative directors today. I want to be brought into a world that I don't necessarily need to understand, I don't necessarily need to love, but I want to be immersed into that word and feel it, completely feel it. And I think with Artisanal 2024 and Artisanal by Glenn Martens now, we felt kind of like similar things. Both felt very mystical, very mythological in a way, but somehow also very down to earth and very much relatable to the world that we live in. If you are not singing or crying on Disarm by Smashing Pumpkins, what the fuck were you doing? Because that one song matched so much a very soft punk vibe that the designs were actually bringing in. I don't know if you guys noticed, I just felt like some things were quite punkish. I'm afraid of saying that because this will definitely backlash. What I mean by that, it was subversive in a way, and with that song, with that grungy song, it just enhanced this like punkishy vibe. If they would have used, let's say, a classical song, right, the entire energy of the perception that we're having of this collection would have been completely different. The fact that you have the little hint to punk and disruption and you have this song enhances that very slight hint that the designs are actually having punk wise. I don't see a look that I can tell you this is punk, but I can feel in the overall perception of the collection this punkish approach. There's also something gothic, and it's obviously associated also with the masks and the fact that the models are having their faces covered. It's very much like mysterious. It's very much like I like when you have the sense of mystery, sometimes it's also associated with a sense of danger, right? So in that way it's like kind of dark, but it's never really dark, it's just a vague feeling because it's actually playful, you know, in the shapes. The forms are very specific. Some of these creations look like they're monsters. Going more specifically into the design, it looked like the creations were having a life on their own. It felt like the clothes, the outfits were like could keep growing. Some felt very flowery, some felt very architectural, but it just felt like you couldn't understand where the look was starting and where it ended. This like continuation and almost like, you know, perception of life and growth. It was really mystical in a way. The choice of having everyone wearing a mask and the reinterpretation of the iconic Margiela mask by Glenn Martens was definitely an added value to the show. The fact that being anonymous was and is one of the most important codes for this fashion house. Looking at other outfits that I have here, the PVC plastic looks were definitely also a topic in terms of reviews. Some people really like them. Some people were like, it's just fucking plastic. This is a couture collection. What the fuck are you doing? We know that for Margiela, luxury doesn't necessarily mean preciousness. So it's always interesting to see how this is reinterpreted in, you know, couture shows and collections. I felt what Glenn Martens did, the fact that he um, outsourced so many parts of this artisanal collection from thrift stores for an artisanal collection. This sends such a message, and it's really in line with the codes of the house. Did Glenn Martens do something extremely different from what we are used to see at Margiela? Absolutely not. And if he would have done that, I think he would have done a very bad job. This is not necessarily the job of a creative director. The creative director has the job of bringing in his vision on a fashion house that has heritage and has history and has legacy and has already a very tight customer base, because there's no makeup going on in this show. And for me, makeup and hair are part of a collection, a feeling, a creative direction as much as the clothes. I honestly really analyze and look very specifically to who does the makeup and the hair and how for fashion shows and collections that I like and I watch. So the fact there was no makeup on, but the artisanal show of John Galliano by John Galliano was so much focused on makeup. I feel like this is such an intentional decision. Every single model in the artisanal show by John Galliano was a character, became the star, you know? We probably know, we could remember, we could mention many of the models that walked that show, and they kind of went viral as well with the collection itself and with the makeup itself. But what Glenn Martens did here, he covered up all of the models, going back to the being anonymous. That's so much part of the DNA of Martin Margiela and the House of Margiela, and it just made so much everything about the outfits. It was a choice that I appreciated because I am, well, I guess like everyone else, I'm a fan of the masks. Like I have two masks, and probably I would try to put my hands on like some Glenn mask if he will create some ready to wear ones, which, if this will be his direction as we saw it right now, I expect him to. So I'm definitely someone who loves this like whole mask thing that's been going on at Margiela since Margiela started the brand, and I find them very interesting to style as well, especially like for a nice event. I have the cutout one, and then I have the just like the simple classic black one. And I was thinking that not knowing the models walking the show, it just made it so much more obviously about the clothes, but about this mystery that I was talking about. And I was trying to figure out who was behind those masks, who was walking. Was the girl in the beige new dress, was she Alex Cosani? Was she? Because it looked like it, I kind of like felt like that was part of her walk. Like she did some movements that I feel like Alex Consani normally does. I wonder, I have to double check that. Anyways, the fact that they were wearing these masks and they were moving a very specific way, this theatricality made it very consistent with also what Galliano was doing. It's just a different type of theatricality, but it's there and it's honestly beautiful. Love it or hate it, Glenn Martens is one of the greatest minds of contemporary fashion. He has a very specific technique, he has a very specific vision. He is also able to kind of like bring you into that. He's actually able to like make you understand his word. And this is what a great communicator and a great creative director has to do. And I'm saying communicator because creative directors are communicators. They have to communicate to the customer, they have to translate the customer's desire, the customer's expectation through their own art and their own vision. And it's a fucking complicated mix to have, you know? I mean, we've seen creative directors being fired after one season because it just fucking didn't work. We're seeing now with Alessandro Michele, which, by the way, another one of the greatest minds of our generation as well. Yet it's not really working. Valentino is not really selling. The customer base doesn't really love Alessandro Michele at the moment or what he has done with the house. So it's gonna be interesting to get into that and see where this is going. I just realized today that I'm super happy to actually be living in this specific historical moment in fashion because things are actually changing and we needed that disruption from the 90s. We needed that break from what the old fashion was in terms of art, in terms of industry, in terms of people, even. You can really feel it in the air. There's this, like, vibe, this smell of newness that's happening, and it's beautiful to be able to be part of it. It's beautiful to discuss about it. It's beautiful to watch these shows and be able to form an opinion about it. I'm really feeling like we're living fashion history as it happens, and that's, yeah, that's something that excites me.